First person that we have on the programme today is Elena Bill, who is currently working as a resources and reader development support assistant at Surrey Libraries, and her talk is entitled Back to Basics, Development, Implementing and Evaluating Stock Management Training for a Public Library Service. So Elena, if you want to put that into, there you go, all perfect and you're ready to go. Thank you.
Excellent. Over to you. Can everyone see my screen and hear me clearly?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, I'm Eleanor. I work for Surrey Libraries in the Resources and Reader Development team, which is our stock team. I'm also currently a LIS Masters student at Aberystwyth, and today I'm going to be talking to you about some training that I was a part of developing and then evaluating. As part of my talk today, I'm going to be giving you a brief introduction to Surrey Libraries. I'm going to discuss why we decided to create new training, how we designed that, how we distributed it, then how we evaluated its effectiveness, the sort of key takeaways we had from that, and how we're then applying those learnings moving forward. So, as I said, I work for Surrey Libraries, and we are the public library service provided by Surrey County Council. We have 52 branches across the county, which includes 10 community partnered libraries, and we have 400 staff members, so we're quite a big service. So I work at our central stock hub instead of in a library branch, and this is sort of our central distribution centre. So our van service runs out of here, and we also hold all of our stock reserve here, which is about 30,000 items. And all of those items, while they are shelved, they do get sent out either to fulfill holds for our customers or to refresh stock in our branches. And a big part of that process is our recirculation and discard stock. So recirculation is the word that we use to refer to items that through stock maintenance or collection HQ reports have been identified by our staff in branch as being no longer needed at that library. And so they will then be sent to our stock hub to become part of the reserve. We also have discard stock, which refers to just withdrawn stock. This is stuff that no longer meets our condition standards, and it will be withdrawn from the catalogue and then similarly sent to our stock hub. So this is my best attempt at explaining how this whole system sort of works. Crates of items arrive at Drill Hall, which is where our stock hub is. They will then either be sorted based on their label, which will either say, recirculation or discard, by our van drivers into two separate aisles. When we look at recirculation items, we will pull out some items if we think that they are in poor condition, and they will also be withdrawn. From there, we will place any other items on trolleys, and they will be scanned in, and then they will be shelved as part of our reserve. And in terms of our discard stock, we unpack those crates. We check the processing is correct visually. So we ask all members of staff and branches to cross through barcodes, and that says to us that they have withdrawn the item on our LMS. If we have any suspicious items, so they might not have that barcode crossed through, or there's no clear reason why they've been withdrawn, we will pull those out and we will check them. And we also do remove some items to be used as sales stock in our branches. And then the remaining items will be packed into crates and collected by Water Books. And they will either sell them on their website or they will pulp them. And so we decided that we needed a bit more training about this in July of 2025. This is when we started to receive several crates of discarded stock that didn't have their barcodes crossed through. In some cases, instead, had their front pages with the barcode just completely ripped out, and were also very new. They were potentially, a few months old, and had no real signs of wear. They were in perfect condition, so we couldn't really see a reason why they had been withdrawn from our system. And we didn't know why this was suddenly happening, why we were suddenly getting all of these errors, particularly from branches that were Surrey is quite a big county, so quite far apart from each other. However, what we did feel was that a factor in this was potentially a difficulty that staff were having in accessing up-to-date information on the correct procedures. We just decided to get together and we had a team meeting to discuss how we should approach this issue, and we decided to create a training video The main reason for this was because we knew that frontline staff would likely not have the time or be given the time to engage with training resources separate from their daily tasks. So this needed to be able to fit in with their daily workflows. And we felt a video, if it was short, if it was subtitled, could be watched with the sound off on the front desk while they're serving customers, sort of in between when they have brief sort of quiet periods, without causing any disruption. Also, obviously, quite resource effective for us. It's future proof. And we also felt that it represented the visual nature of the task quite well. Obviously, a lot of this is to do with evaluating the condition of stock, and we wanted something that would really convey that very well. We were also aware that two of our very successful previous training resources, which were our stock awareness days and our library liaison assistants, had been removed due to sort of service restructures. And these both provided a way for staff to visually see somebody else during the process. And we identified here that there might be a slight gap in our training and that the video could assist with that. We also obviously wanted to consider how these new resources would fit in with our current training resources. And we do provide some in-branch training. However, this is done on a request basis. So a library has to ask for this. Mostly new staff members are trained with instructional documents. The only issue that we have with these is obviously they present the tasks in sort of a step-by-step structure, which isn't always useful, particularly with stock management things where it's kind of more of a critical thinking skill. You can't necessarily break it down into sort of such a linear process. And staff also learn from experienced branch colleagues, although we recognise that if we are not providing those branch colleagues with the most up-to-date information, then they can't pass that on to their new colleagues. So myself and my colleague Joanna were tasked with producing this video. We gathered together and we created sort of a brain dump document where we sort of put all of our ideas and everything we discussed with our fellow team members into just a Word doc. And we were aiming for a short video, around 5 minutes was the initial goal. And so we edited down all of that information we had into our absolute sort of core points that we needed to get across. And then we decided on a demonstration structure to sort of mirror those two former training resources. So it would be someone, a member of staff, in front of the camera, sort of doing the process and talking through their thoughts and their actions as they were doing it. And to enable this, we then selected some physical examples to evidence those points from both some of those crates that we received and also from our reserve. We decided to film in an office, sort of downstairs in our room that was quite quiet but had a lot of natural light. And then we started filming, and this was all sort of in the space of a day. So we started off initially with all of our thoughts, and by the end of the day, we had a video. So I volunteered to be in front of the camera, and I did not use a script, mostly because at this point we had talked about this so much that the information was very much in my head, and I felt I could talk about it quite confidently. We did multiple takes, which I found very useful. So me and Joanna would sort of catch up in between each take, and that helps us sort of shape it as we were going. And once we had a take I was happy with, I imported it onto Canva, I edited it, I added the captions, and at this point it came to 6 minutes exactly. So we then presented it to the rest of our team members, and we received some positive feedback from them, particularly in the sort of demonstration format. However, it was highlighted that at one point I did provide some incorrect information. And so I then went back, I filmed some B-roll of me doing the task, and I also recorded a voiceover, and I inserted this in, and that brought us to our final time of 6 minutes and 30 seconds. My manager also suggested it might be a good idea to have a written version of the information that could provide a bit more detail and nuance than the short video maybe could. This was originally sort of intended to be a transcript of the video itself, but I felt that it didn't necessarily work without the visual element. And so I wrote it out once again using that same sort of structure of somebody doing the task and talking you through all of their thoughts. However, I became a bit worried that it was maybe too detailed. I felt that worked really well for my brain, but I knew that not everyone's brain works like my brain, and so we decided that it might be good to add a third resource that was sort of in a poster format, so it provided an even more condensed version of that information. And that became the flowchart. So from our initial video, I then sort of thought out every single possible thought and idea and choice you would have to make as part of the evaluation process. And I cut and I simplified until I felt I had what was the core sort of thought process of this. And I then showed this to my co-workers, and they luckily agreed with me on that. I then thought it might be a good idea to create sort of a visual scale of book condition. So it sort of starts off, I have a brand new book here at the bottom, and it goes all the way to the top where I have a moldy book. And I showed this stack to my colleagues, and we all decided on a line that we drew of when we should be discarding something. And this is intended for display in workrooms, almost as a sort of reference resource. So when people are doing the work, they have something that they can just sort of look at to assist them in that. So then we took all of these resources to our team meeting, and we secured a sign off from our team lead. We then sent them out to all staff through their emails. We chose this over branch emails because we wanted every single member of staff to have this in their personal inbox. Branch managers were also alerted through our team lead. And luckily, we reached out to our learning and skills team, and they agreed to include it as the monthly training for October, which meant that members of staff would have scheduled time to engage with the resources overall. And we think that that really helped with the effectiveness of them. And because of that, we are looking to establish it as part of a yearly training program, to sort of make sure that people are getting a refresher, but also that new staff get to have a chance to engage with them. Most of it was positive. We had to be respectful of staff's time. So it included only 4 manual multiple choice questions and then 2 voluntary comments boxes. So we decided we wanted to assess the training across 3 main areas, that being how well we presented the information, how well it was for staff members to comprehend, and then how easy it was to then apply that in their work. And so the 4 questions we asked were around those themes. And when we sent the survey out, we sent it out through the same email channels, and we gave them a month for completion. We sent out a reminder email a week before the close date, and we received 47 responses, which we were very happy with because it was above our goal of 10%. I was also particularly happy with the survey results because 100% of people thought that we presented it in an easy to understand way, felt that it improved their understanding of the process, and found it useful in their everyday work. The question I was most interested in was about their preferred format. And I think what intrigued me about that is that every single format was preferred by some group of staff. And we also received a comment in our box from a branch staff member who said it was helpful to have the information in various formats to allow for different learning styles. It also meant there was a way to refresh my memory of a particular point without having to complete the whole training again, which was, particularly the second part of that, wasn't something we had considered when we were doing the multiple resources, but I think it definitely sort of solidified for me that that was the correct approach for us to take moving forward when we look at developing more training in the future. So what did I learn from this? I think the main thing is the importance of the varied depths of information. Firstly, particularly when you have such a big staff pool, there is going to be so many different learning styles in there. And you just want to remove as many barriers as you can from people to access the information. As that comment said, you know, staff members aren't always engaging with the information in the same way. They are sometimes going for a full sort of deep dive, wanting to understand a new topic to them, but they also might have it might be something that they did maybe a month ago, but they haven't done since, and they just want a quick refresher. So you sort of have to accommodate for that variation in the resources. We also had several conversations with staff members who were anxious, particularly sort of our more experienced staff members, about any updates to the process. And I think that really emphasized to me that, you know, learning is always vulnerable for people. And so you have to come in being friendly and supportive to really assist in their ability to learn and take on that information. I think it also made us realize that there was a lot more smaller stock procedures that maybe didn't warrant a full training program, but that we still needed to be communicating with staff about. So looking at communicating in more informal channels. And I think also people were interested. They were excited about the feedback. They intentionally approached us to give us feedback on the training. And so that I found very positive and made me feel more confident about not only sort of Surrey and where I work, but creating further resources in the future. So how we are applying this more moving forward is that we have seen a noticeable improvement in the accuracy of the processing and the condition of stock. So it has solved the initial problem that we set out to improve. As I said, we're also looking at developing our communication channels further. We're currently looking at sort of Viva Engage for this and also sort of Teams chats. But if anyone has any experience with that, that they want to drop in a chat, I would be more than happy to take on any further ideas. And we also are currently in the very early stages of developing training about processing public donations, because this was our most requested topic for training resources in our survey. And we are once again going to be doing the sort of multi-format model because of the fact that we found it so useful and successful. Yes, thank you all so much for listening to my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Elena. That was really useful. As host, I get to kick off with the first question, as everyone else is doing their round of virtual applause. I can see pinging along the bottom. So if anyone has got any questions, please use the chat. We're up to about 40 attendees, so I should be able to scan through, she says confidently, and pick out anyone that's got their hands up to ask verbally. But I'll start off with, you mentioned you recorded the video and then obviously imported it and did it on Canva.
Yeah.
Was that just recorded on your mobile phone, or did you have any other
on a mobile
stuff?
phone? The only thing that we did get that was extra was a tripod for a mobile phone off Amazon. So that was the only additional charge, but no, it was just my mobile phone. Yeah.
And does this mean you've opened the floodgates for other training to be disseminated in this way? I'm guessing it kind of it's a good thing that people have engaged with it, but does it open the floodgates and people are now requesting training to now be delivered in a video format?
Yes, I think so. So I know that not my team, but another team is currently looking at doing, we have previously recorded a video about stock presentation standards. And so there is currently another project going on about redoing that video, sort of to be more up to date. So I think that is definitely a format that we're looking at sort of continuing moving forward because it was so popular with staff. Yeah.
And how do your colleagues feel about that? Have they got the digital skills to do what you've done?
I think so. Yes, I think so. Luckily, because we have the learning and skills team, where that is their specialty, we can have them support us, and we also have our projects team, who focus on events and things like and social media and things like that. So we have a lot of people within Surrey who have the skills that we can bring in to help if we don't personally have them. So yes, I think that we should be able to pull it off. Yeah.
Any questions from anyone else? I can't spot anything in the chat. Leanne, have you got your hand up as your official chair of North East? You don't come up as a human named person, but I knew who it was.
All right, well, That's good to know. Not human. That's fine. I'm CN on the attendee list. Yeah, I mean, my question was because I think it's interesting making videos, and you mentioned that it took you about a day or so to do that. Is that including and obviously you did multiple takes. Is that including the editing as well? Because sometimes the editing, did you find like the editing was longer than shooting?
No, it was because because we had the physical examples, I almost had a physical structure of the video in front of me, and that made it so that there wasn't actually much editing needed because I would pick up a book and I would know what I had to talk about. And so because of that, the only editing that we really needed was to chop off a few seconds off the beginning and the end. And then, as I said, I think later on, I then had to go back and record a few more clips and then slot those in. But the initial edit, aside from that, it was part of that full day. So yeah, by the end of that day, we had a full final cut that we could show people.
No, that's great, thank you. I mean, yeah, I find like sometimes most of the videos that I make are screen recordings, and it's usually probably me making mistakes or saying the complete wrong thing. I would probably have a script. But yeah, I think that sounds like a good piece of work, especially if you've done it in a day. That sounds really impressive. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I have done, we've also been doing some screen recordings, and I have found that I do actually need a script for that. I think it was just the sort of nature of that particular video. It was something I knew a lot about, so I was just sort of able to talk about it sort of vaguely confidently, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard, isn't it, when you're trying to click on the screen and then talk eloquently and follow what you need. It's like an extra layer of something going on that your brain can't quite process, I think. But,
that's why it's good, particularly having my colleague Joanna there, because she can make sure that I was in focus and everything. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do it in a day if it was just me. Absolutely.
Okay, that's great. I can see there's a comment in the chat about getting the right message across about stock withdrawals, which I'm guessing there'll be a whole range of people from lots of different institutions as part of the attendee list this afternoon, but I'm guessing it will be a common thread across lots of places around, you know, management of stock, the collection more generally, and getting everyone to follow the same rules, the same messages, the same procedure. It seems quite as your title alludes to, getting back to basics. It should be something that's straightforward, but it's slightly more complicated than you think. So many thanks for sharing your presentation this afternoon and getting us started. I'll let you stop sharing, and then
thank you for having me.
Thank you.